Hey, everybody. It's been all bad news lately. The Warriors need a win ASAP. They've lost 5 in a row. Houston Rockets are up next, and Golden State will be missing Steph Curry plus Draymond Green. Golden State seems like they need some more dudes. Where are they going to find them? In-house? Externally? Let's debate on today's Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the good word, everyone? We appreciate you for making Locked On Warriors a part of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. We're coming at you every day. We're free and available wherever you get your audio podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Give us the thumbs up if you're tuning in on YouTube. And if you like the show and you listen on the audio podcast, we very much appreciate the reviews. My name is Charlie Walter, formerly at 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. Also worked for CBS News Bay Area. Call letters KPIX. Joining me today, a native of the Bay Area. It's Michael Loganoff, played basketball, a standout at St. Ignatius High School, good enough to where he was able to take his his talents collegiately. And today he joins me on the show to break down what's going wrong with the Golden State Warriors and how we're going to get this thing back on track. Warriors play a pretty good game against the Nuggets, but that's kind of been this entire losing streak. For stretches against the Spurs, they were fine until they crumbled. For stretches against the Nets, they were fine until they crumbled. They lose against the Thunder without Curry, but they play a good game. What is going to get this team over the finish line? That is what we're dissecting today. First of all, Michael, welcome back. Your weekly edition on this show. It's always welcomed. How we been, my guy?
It's good to be back, Chuck. Always a pleasure to chat some dubs with you. And, you know, it's been a little bit unfortunate, but I think we're going to have to face some unfortunate realities. And who better than two of the Bay Area's best honesty brokers to break things down here, huh?
I do my best with the honesty, man. Take some heat for it sometimes. In the offseason, I was called a fool for the Buddy Hield takes. And lately, they've been looking all right because Buddy Hield has struggled. I also got called a fool for Brandon Pajemski thinking he was going to be a star. And Steve Kerr has had it with the way Brandon Pajemski's been playing, but Pajemski's still getting time. We're going to dissect that. But let's just start with things from an overview of how they lost this game down the stretch. Came down to really losing their identity defensively, not being able to score the ball. I mean, the last 2 minutes and 6 seconds of the game, they did not score a single point after scoring 115 up to that point. That points to them needing a second score. But I think most of all, the alarming weakness for this team is when they turn it over, they just seem so damn inopportune, man. Just so inopportune.
Yeah, I mean, the turnovers, Chuck, it's what we've talked about all season, right? It's the turnovers are what's going to kill us. The fouling is what's going to kill us. We're seeing regression from the progress that we made this season to regressing to the team that we saw last season, right? Despite these new pieces. Part of the reason why I think about that, or why I think that's happening, I should say, and a little bit, you talk about pods, right? It's the turnovers and leverage situations. It's that's a good little hairdo you got going on over there. But with pods, it's a little bit, you know, the reality of the situation is with DeAnthony Melton being out for the rest of the season, who was meant to be our starting shooting guard, people are clamoring, oh, why is Pods getting so much burn? Why is he on the court? Well, the fundamental construction of the roster is that he was our backup shooting guard. He was going to play a combo guard 1 and 2 off the bench. And our starting shooting guard is now out for the season. So thus he is slotted into the front lines there and into the starting unit. And so that's just how it's going to be. And we have to kind of live with that. We saw some, you know, a little bit of progress from his game and what we talked about last week, I think, with him play a little bit more like Jalen Brunson, right? Get to the middle. Don't just stop on your pivot foot and be a whirling dervish, you know, get there, create some separation and knock down some shots. And he did that last night. Obviously, the fouls need to stop. The turnovers and leverage scenarios need to stop. And that's why Steve Kerr, you know, eviscerated him last night after the game. He's putting him back into his place of, hey, look, the reason why you were so great last year is because you were the glue guy. And he still makes those plays like that when he's diving out of bounds and tosses the ball up and it's saved, right? Those little hustle plays around the edges. He's great at that, and he still will be. But it's needing to kind of play into your role and accepting that. And I think, if we can see a little bit of progress on that front, I think every single Warriors fan, every spectator of the game will just appreciate it.
Pitchforks have come out for Steve Kerr, and I thought this was just a YouTube thing, but I'm now seeing it on the Spotify or the Apple podcast comments, seeing it on the social media apps. So maybe it's just an internet thing. I don't know if the grumblings are going on inside of the friendly confines of Chase Center, but there are some people with the pitchforks out for Steve Kerr right now. My counter argument would be, who do you bring in that does a better job with this roster as currently constructed? I mean, it's clearly missing something, and that something is someone to help out Steph Curry. I mean, he is pressing right now. You don't see Steph Curry pressing often. When you have some of the turnovers that he did, driving into the lane into no man's land and throwing it behind his back, essentially, he feels like he has to play hero ball, and a lot of that's on Steph. I mean, Steph, the last week or two, has not been good, man. I mean, even when he's bad, he's good. That's the thing. But he's not in the world of Steph Curry. Has had some very negative plays. But when it comes to Kerr right now, what would you like to see more of Steve Kerr?
I mean, well, with people who think that we should get rid of Steve Kerr, I mean, I think they got to look themselves in the mirror, take the clown mask off, and sit back down and eat a slice of humble pie, because that is just one of the most asinine comments I've ever heard with regards to one of the winningest coaches in NBA history, a 4-time NBA champion as a head coach. And a good barometer is not just who's going to come in, but the thought process is, okay, if Steve Kerr hits the streets and Lacob gives him the boot, how quickly is he going to be scooped up? Right, he can have basically any job in the NBA if he's no longer the Warriors coach. So anyone that says, hey, let's get rid of him, they don't know what they're talking about. And whether that's on the internet, whether that's in the street, whether that's on, within Chase Center, I think that's just that's not the path that we want to go. But equally, when we talk about Steph a little bit too, Chuck, I think one of the things that we've seen throughout his entire career is at times he does get lackadaisical with his passing, right? He's willing. We've seen him a lot of times on a high pick and roll where he takes those 2 dribbles, right, attracts 2, and just kind of throws it over his head a little bit. And we see that pass get tipped and lead to dunks on the other end and easy buckets. And, those are the things that it's part of just, having Steph as your best player. But from the standpoint of, pressing and whatnot, and even, with the opening segment there, when you brought up the last 2.5 or 2 minutes and 6 seconds, we couldn't get a bucket. That goes back to the second option, because in all those scenarios, I mean, we run a high pick and roll for Steph, which when he hits that 3, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. We saw it in the Olympics. We saw it against Lively this season. We've seen it a lot of times over the years, and it's great. But when that's not going in, we need to have someone else that you can give the ball to that can beat their man, either off the bounce, rise up over into get to their spots and rise up into a jump shot. And that's something that we don't reliably have. We've seen Wiggins do it in spurts, but we also got the full Wiggins experience last night, right? We talk about him in the Celtics game when he goes and drives left and hits that tough pull-up jump shot right in Jason Tatum's face, and we puts us up by 4 and gives us that buffer. But then last night we see it when he goes to drive and falls over and turns the ball over, right? And so while I've been really impressed with Wiggins overall, and I'm nitpicking here because it's a high leverage situation, and that was a tough passage of play at that point in the game, but we need someone who can reliably do that. And, we can talk a little bit more there, but I'll pause because I went on a little rant. I'll get off the soapbox here.
No, I mean, the big question is, could that player be Jonathan Kuminga if you give him the minutes? The splits do say that if you give Kuminga more than 30 minutes, he can score the basketball. But is he a reliable scorer? Down the stretch, an alpha, someone that you can get the ball to and consistently expect him to make a play. If not, the Warriors need someone. Where are they going to get it? Washington? Kuzma? We're discussing coming up on Locked On Dubs. Hey everyone, the holidays are a great time of the year. They're also expensive. You're getting together with loved ones. You are trying new experiences, and you're spending a lot of money on presents, which it can put you in a little bit of a financial hole. Let Chime help you out. It's a fee-free overdraft up to $200. You get spotted on debit card purchases, no monthly fees or maintenance fees, and over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. You set up direct deposit on your Chime account. After a qualifying direct deposit of $200+, Chime will notify you to enroll in Spot Me. With an activated debit card, Chime will spot you up to $200 on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Your next direct deposit is applied to your negative balance. Chime never charges overdraft fees for using Spot Me. Enjoy the holidays while keeping your financial goals on track with Chime. Chime.com/NBA. That's Chime.com/NBA. Feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank or Stride Bank, members FDIC. Spot Me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Direct deposits timing depends on submission of payment file. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in Spot Me and are subject to monthly limits. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs and OTC withdrawals. All right, let's continue the conversation. Who are the Warriors getting in terms of a second scorer? Are they going to get anyone? We got to preface this with the fact that the Warriors have a window. 4 years. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Andrew Wiggins, and Buddy Hield is in that window as well. Joe Lacob has said there's no such thing as windows. Like, it's always, the window's always open. It's just different. The landscape's always changing. Teams are always changing. We're going to do what's best for us to win. What's best for the Warriors to win right now is to find another dude. Now, how do you do it is tough. Is the dogs are barking in the background. Who let the dogs out? It's tough because the Warriors right now, it would require probably getting rid of Wiggins to match a contract. And Wiggins has been extremely good for the Warriors. Maybe not a reliable two by any means, but he's been good. It would probably require getting rid of Jonathan Kuminga, and there are other moves that go into it as well, including draft picks. So what's the best way to balance future success, or at least not falling off a cliff, with winning now? Because there are people out there that say you got to maximize Curry's career. I don't care if the next 10 years they're trash afterwards. You got to get him one more. I just have never looked at that as a wise way of running an operation. I know that Steph Curry is technically the franchise right now, but life is going to move on at some point.
Well, Chuck, here's where we can agree to disagree, because I think the best strategy in this situation is you win now and you do whatever you can to win now when you have Steph Curry, who's a generational talent, who's a top 10 player of all time, and you do whatever it takes. And it's simple as that, because any other strategy, if you try and, we've tried this 2 timeline approach, right? And while we found some talented young players, right? I mean, overall last night, Kuminga played phenomenally. Moody played great. They've both had great instances this season where they've come in and they've really performed. And they've proven they can play at the NBA level. There is no doubt about that. Podziemski has, he was a first-team All-Rookie last year. Trace was almost on the All-Rookie team as well, right? So we have promising young talent. But right now, when you think about a win-now situation, when you have one of the best players in the NBA, one of the best players of all time, the only thing you can do is win now. And, that balancing act, trying to strike that perfect balance, is just something that I think is a little bit too much of it's too tough of a needle to thread, frankly. And if that means you go out and you mortgage the future, I think, because if you don't go all in right now with Steph, you're not going to win a championship. Championships aren't guaranteed in general. And when you think about the prospects of, if I could wave a wand and Chuck, you said, yeah, we traded Kuminga, we traded even Pods, we traded Moody, we traded TJD and, the draft picks until 30-30, but we got another chip in the next 5 years. And you asked me, would you do it? I would
30-30. 30-30. I don't know if we don't know.
Hold on. I'm being hyperbolic, I'm being hyperbolic here intentionally, but I'm saying if we mortgage the farm to get one more chip in the next 3 years, I say you do it, because the chances of winning after you lose Steph to find that next literally generational talent are so slim. It's going to be finding a needle in a haystack. The Warriors had been doing that for years, and we know what that's like. So why not try to win again now? This fan base is tough, baby. We've been through it.
But the counter is Steph Curry he's aging, man. He's aging, and it can change quickly. And I know everyone's saying this is a dude that's built different. He's built like LeBron. He's going until he's 40 years old. He's been struggling the last few weeks, man. I mean, he is not enough to carry a team anymore. If you brought in the the horses to help them win, like you got to win. That's the
Well,
thing. So
yeah,
so here's what I bring up. Like a name Kyle Kuzma has been floated around. If you go out and get Kyle Kuzma, and let's say you also go out and get Jakob Poeltl, you get two guys like that, or you get Vucevic and Kuzma, you bring them into the fold and you get rid of all your youth and multiple draft picks in the process. Is that team winning a title?
I mean, that's really tough because having to understand what that roster would look like, what the construction would be, bringing in guys like Kuz or Vooch. I mean, it's tough to really envisage that because I mean, I think Vucevic is interesting. I don't think he necessarily fully moves the needle. Potentially, he could help us get out of that 5 to 6 spot to more of a 3 to 4 range in the West. But I don't think he's a needle mover by any means. Schematically, it could kind of work. You'd have Draymond in that low post, likely being the decision maker. Vucevic being kind of that fulcrum of the offense up top and having the offense run through him. And because of his 3-point shooting ability, defenses have to keep honest to him, and that opens things up for Wiggins and Kuminga cutting and getting to the hoop and getting easy buckets. So schematically and at a high level, yeah, that works. But do I think of, if you're trotting out a starting lineup with, let's just say, we managed to keep Pods in that situation, you're trotting out a starting lineup of Steph, Podziemski, Kuz, Draymond, and Vucevic. I mean, come on. If you're telling me against the Celtics, like I'll name 3 players and you're telling me we're going to lose Tatum, Brown, and Kristaps, right? So that roster construction, I don't think wins you a championship. And the reason why is it's kind of, I think the way that we need to think about this because clearly there needs to be something that changes with the roster, right? We've had too many games towards the end of the fourth where we can't score points and we can't execute in high leverage scenarios because Steph needs someone else that can go attack, and it's not just going to be a high pick and roll every single time. And it's someone that looks like potentially, I know he hasn't really been having a great year so far, but a player like a Jimmy Butler, right? That can play both ways, that can play good defense, that can score when, you give him the ball, can go back to the basket, hit a turnaround jump shot, hit a short fade, get to the hoop, get the N1, just kind of the ugly muscle buckets. That's what we need a little bit more of because right now in this current construction, we don't have that. When the play breaks down, and yes, Kuminga has done it in spurts, and do I think Kuminga can do that later on in his career? Yes. Do I think Kuminga can be that reliable second option right now on this Warriors team? No, he can't. And so it's a matter of finding someone that fits that sort of a mold, right? Because even a move around the edges of a Dennis Schroeder or a Terry Rozier, sure, yeah, you get a little bit more firepower, but I mean, those aren't necessarily elite NBA players by any means, right? So again, I'll pause now because the soapbox is bending at the hinges over here.
The question I have for you is, would you add another ball hog to the mix potentially? Zach LaVine from the Chicago Bulls. Is that a name that Michael Loganoff would like to see in the Bay Area? We're debating it coming up on Locked On Warriors. As you guys know, I've been sitting on that 43.5 win total ticket. I got it on America's #1 sports book. It's FanDuel. 43.5 for the Warriors. Felt like such a lock just a couple of weeks ago. Still feeling good. Live odds still say we are feeling good, but it could get spicy come the end of the season. If you're tackling the NFL action right now, I hope you're doing it on America's #1 sports book. That's FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you know what's coming. You can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play. You can do it all on the page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so we teased it. Who could the Golden State Warriors go with moving forward? Are they going to run this thing as is the entire season and just kind of make little changes along the edges, just some fine trimming and figure out what they have in-house, make a smaller deal that helps them? Or is this a team that's going to go out and make a blockbuster move? Now, would bringing in Zach LaVine be considered a blockbuster move? He makes a lot of money. Let's put it that way. Is he worth the money he makes? Maybe not. Can he put the basketball in the bucket? That's a fact. He can do that. Would he help the Golden State Warriors? Is that something they should maybe explore? The only name that I've heard right now that the Warriors are actually interested in, per the sources, is Kyle Kuzma. Now, I don't know how much that helps the team. It's always hard to say because you look at them on the teams that they're currently on, and they're on lifeless teams, right? And they're asked to have different roles. So I don't know. Zach LaVine in a Warriors uniform, is that something that moves the needle at all for you?
I don't think so because, I mean, look, LaVine, if you bring him in, the amount of contract matching that we're going to need to do to make that deal happen, you're going to be stuck with a roster that I'll tell you, I know two guys that'll still be on the team, Steph and Draymond. But after that, I don't know who we're going to be calling up from Santa Cruz to help, fill in the gaps in the roster, just because, I mean, LaVine's making what, $54 million a year. And I mean, it'd just be really tough to think about what that construction looks like because, I mean, let's not pay for the sins of Chicago and overpaying him.
All right, let's put it this way. If you're looking at $54 million, you're talking nearly, I think Wiggins is at what, 26. That gets you about halfway there. DeAnthony Melton's expiring contract because, hey, if the Bulls want to get rid of LaVine, they'll take on that contract. That gets you about $20 million away. You're throwing
Looney and GP2.
Looney, GP2, Moody. I mean, you're throwing a king's ransom to get yourself Zach LaVine if that's the case. That's the strange thing about the NBA compared to other leagues. There's no just magic CMC trades out there where it's like, hey, the Panthers don't want Christian McCaffrey. Let's go gobble him up. It doesn't really work that way. You got to match. And that's where the Warriors are kind of in a tough situation because Wiggins is probably going to have to be involved in one of these deals. And he is still very valuable. And you still have him on a decent contract.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? If you're getting what's Wiggins averaging this year, like 17 points a game. I mean, his efficiency could be a little bit better, but 17 points a game, great two-way player, former All-Star, NBA champion for $26 million in this inflated market. I mean, that's an awesome deal, right? You're getting great production. You're really happy with that contract and with the production that you're getting. And it's just, again, though, it's tough to envisage what that roster looks like if we take on LaVine. I don't know if it's worth it, especially with his injury history and whatnot. I mean, there's a reason why the Bulls are looking to shop him too, right? I mean, that's ultimately something to consider. There's a reason why the Bulls have decided to do a fire sale, right? And I don't know if I want necessarily toxic assets, right? I mean, he played 25 games last year. His numbers look pretty good this year. Yes, he can score, and I'm sure LaVine would score very well and kind of fit into the offensive system that the Warriors play. But it's a question of, how much better do we look by having someone like LaVine?
It's a bold move, and the Warriors are going to have to do something bold if they want to be serious championship contenders. Now, the spin of this is we said the same thing when they lost 5 games in 21-22. We said this team needs something. They're just not good enough. And what do you know? They were good enough. The difference is that team had Jordan Poole. That team had Klay Thompson. The NBA, I don't think as a whole was as strong. And, you got Memphis without Ja Morant for a few games in there. You got, a path that was a little bit more favorable until you got to Boston. And then Curry went off and did what he does. And I think every year that goes by, it's going to be harder for Steph Curry to put up 40, 50-point nights like he did in the NBA Finals that season, specifically Game 4 when he put up 40 and was electric. So it's like if I give you the magic wand, unfortunately the powers have to be realistic. The lamp, it's not anything you want. It's anything you want that's realistic. What would you do with that one wish, man?
I mean, with if I could wave one wand, and if there was a way, and this is it can't happen.
You got the Elder Wand, man. You took it from Voldemort.
Oh, there we go. I took it from Voldemort. All right. Well, I mean, look, I would, if I'm thinking win now, win 2 to 3 years. All right. I go with Jimmy B strictly because I think about, and this is, again, hear me out, right? This is, cap doesn't matter in this world right now. Okay. Right. We're playing 2K, the cap's off. But I think if there's a way in which you can keep a Wiggins in that situation, which I don't know how the money would work, but if you can do that, and then your starting lineup is something like Steph, Jimmy, Wiggins, Draymond, and then Trace at the center, if that's, who's left over, that those defensive matchups, I mean, that's incredible, right? With Jimmy's competitive nature, with Wiggins' ability to guard, smaller guards, right? You can put Jimmy on a small forward, a bigger one. You got Draymond, who's your jack of all trades. I mean, that defense is it would be a sight to see. And then
you're going all into toughness. It sounds like all into toughness over finesse.
Exactly. Because that's what we just need, a little bit more of that. And that's what we've been lacking too with, I harped on this a lot last week with losing Melton. And I talked about a little bit today of, it's not just the fact that, okay, yeah, he was our starting shooting guard. It's what he brought to the team from the standpoint of being able to take the defensive assignment of the primary ball handler. It's the fact that he's someone that can create and reliably shoot down the stretch of games. So then that way, it's not just Steph who needs to, have a high pick and roll. Melton can take the ball up. Melton can beat his man off the dribble. Then Melton can find Wiggins. Melton can find Steph, whoever it is, and be able to create that way. And that's what we're lacking, is that reliable, in the Meltons, from losing Melton, and why we need to make a tweak to the roster now, I think, is we just don't have someone that can either create reliably for others and knock down shots, or can kind of be a little bit of the bully ball guy. We're kind of in a little bit of a conundrum here, Chuck.
Yeah, and the Warriors got to hang in there until December 15th. That's where the moves can start being made. Contracts are available to flip. In the last just week, they went from second place in the West, first place in the West not too long ago, all the way down to seventh. So the season ended today. They are in the play-in tournament, and they're just a game and a half above the 10 spot. Minnesota is right there. So Golden State's got to fix this thing quickly. The stretch for Golden State is not one that really makes you feel great. It's Houston a couple of times, one in Group Cup play. Also the Timberwolves 3 times. The Grizzlies are in there. It's the Pacers. It's the Lakers. It's the Clippers. It's the Suns. It's the Cavaliers. That takes you all the way up to the new year. What do the Warriors have to look at? I mean, how many games are we talking? We're talking like 11 games, something like that, depending on NBA Cup play. 11 games. So 31 games into the season. What do they have to be to really be hanging in this thing come the new year?
What record do we need to see for them to really want to be competitive and to make a move? So you said there's 31 games.
If you lose 9 of 11 games here and you're 14 and do the math there, 14, and at this point you're under 500. Like, how are we looking?
Yeah, I mean, that's then at that point it's that's a desperation play, right? That's when you bring out the Hail Mary, because we drop back to what I think we're now 12-9. Let me pull up the standings on my side too, Chuck, because then that would put us at
12-8.
Okay, no, we're 12-8. We're 12-8. Okay, so we'd be 14-17 at that point. We'd be hovering around probably the 10-11 spot. But then with how the West is constructed too, you think, okay, well, do we want to just go all in now because we have Steph? And I mean, it's going to be a tough decision that they have to make. I mean, that might be one where they move some of the more veteran contracts just to get more of a $20 million guy to see, okay, maybe that helps us get to that 6-7 spot again and kind of see what we can make happen from there. I don't think if we're 14-17 at the new year that we're going to make any blockbuster trade, because at that point it doesn't make sense. It's just, I mean, it's really going to be a matter of they have to execute these next few weeks. I mean, that's just, if they don't, there's no real point in that situation of doing a fire sale on our side of our young assets as well. That's when you say, okay, all right, now we really let the young guys play and work things out, right? I mean, you kind of roll with what you got at that point.
Do you think it could get that bad, though? Because, I mean, some of these games, Warriors have looked terrible for stretches, but they've been in every single one, right? They've been right there. They had a double-digit lead on the Nuggets in the fourth quarter. They blew it down the stretch. It was a 6-point game with 2 minutes left. Like, they should have won that basketball game. They didn't. Are you worried that the wheels could spin off? Sorry, Benny, we got one more question. Are you worried that the wheels could spin off, or not so much?
I mean, What would give me confidence, so I'll tell you what, Chuck, we're going to have boots on the ground at Chase Center tomorrow night. We'll be there in person watching the Rockets. And
he's going to be at Mission Rock, cocktail in hand, about 12:30, riding lift bikes around. We love it.
Exactly. It's going to be, we'll be ready for the game. But I think what I want to see is, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but that's why you bring me on. I gotta say it. It's, if we play to our identity that we established in those first 15 games, if we get back to doing that, then the wheels aren't coming off. And then you find a way to kind of work with what you got, even though you don't have Melton, right? And if we're able to do that and not turn the ball over, not give a team 35 free throws like we did last night, then I think we're going to be going to have a pretty good fighting chance to win these games, right? And so even then, if let's say we go 7-4 in the next 11 games, or even 6-5, if we go 6-5, when we pull up the standings again, we're 12-8. That puts us at 18-13. We're probably in that 5-6 spot in the West at that point. And this is what I said over the summer. What I've said on the show countless times was the moves that we made this summer, picking up these veteran guys, is going to put us in a position to be in the 5 or 6 seed. If we're out of the play-in tournament, that's a great thing, because in the playoffs, anything can happen. The playoffs come down to execution. The playoffs also come down to availability, right? And that's ultimately what it comes down to. And I think, if we can put ourselves in that position, if we can play the brand of basketball that was winning us games, then I don't think the wheels are going to come off, right? And the one last thing that I'll say in this last rant here, Chuck, is, with the highs and lows of the NBA season, you got to stay level-headed, because, at the start of the year, everyone was fired up. Oh, the Warriors, the Warriors are back. The Warriors are back. And now, oh God, the Warriors are gone. No, okay, we're in a little bit of a rut. Okay, there are things that can change around the roster, of course, like we discussed. But if we play the brand of basketball that won us the games, we will continue to win some games. If we exceed, if we're over 50 wins this season, is an astounding success. 50 was my over/under. I'm a little bit more optimistic than Vegas, but that's kind of where I think the next few weeks will play out.
Houston Rockets 15-7. There's never a good time to get the Houston Rockets. They're one of the best young upstart teams in the NBA. But if there is a good time to get them, it's Thursday night, which the Warriors do, because Tari Eason's out for the game. He's really good. Fred VanVleet, questionable. So, hey, Warriors got to get one. It's Houston. They've already taken them down once. Now, lost a 30-point lead in that game. It went to overtime. It's going to be a little more difficult, but Houston's good. And we're about to see what Golden State is made of with this upcoming stretch leading us into the new year, where it's just good teams nonstop. No more Utahs, no more Portlands. We got to see if the Warriors have the dogs. Michael Loganoff, thanks for joining the show. We'll talk soon.